All right, so we're here today with Michelle, who has helped me a ton with, I just had an appointment with her last month, slowly starting to work on myself, but I'll hand it over to her so she can introduce herself and let you all know all about her.
All right. Yeah, I'm Michelle Kunselman, and I am a doctor of naturopathy here in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. I've been in practice for several years in Grove City, but recently started my own practice here in Slippery Rock and just kind of getting started with going out on my own, being able to have a little bit more flexibility in my schedule. So it's been exciting to make this big move forward. I studied at Trinity School of Health, and I have a couple of certifications through them, certified natural health practitioner, as well as a certified health specialist, and then the doctor of naturopathy. And I love the world of naturopathic medicine because it looks at the emotional, the physical, the spiritual. We can see how they're all interconnected. And so that's my heartbeat is to walk with people on a journey. It's not this race. You're going to be on a journey your whole life. There's going to be things that affect you in the process. And so just kind of walking with people and helping them understand the beauty of their design, which is amazing. And it's not making mistakes, but it's responding to what's going on around it. And so we don't have to be reactive. We can respond to it. And so that's really the heartbeat of how I practice here in Slippery Rock. So it's exciting to talk about this topic because I have personally dealt with the topic that Dr. Kate asked me to walk through the day today of postpartum depression. I dealt with it after my second pretty intensely. So.
Yeah, and it can, from what I've witnessed in my office, it seems like it, can come at all different levels. So, but you shouldn't I feel like you shouldn't brush aside if you feel like yours is minor. You should still reach out and try to get it addressed. So
yeah,
I see a lot of postnatal, prenatal patients in the office, and I thought a lot of the stumbling blocks for my patients when we're doing the musculoskeletal, rehabbing their core, integrating, working on their scars, doing pelvic floor work, all that stuff is sometimes like adrenal fatigue or hormone imbalances. And those kind of things really slow the progress down. So I think integrating with what you do really helps bring things full circle. So if you want to.
Awesome. Really excited about what you're doing. I have a few clients that we share, so that's always fun to kind of learn what's happening on that end. And it's just such I love I always look at our health as like the team that walks us. It's like, who's on my team, what chiropractor, what physical therapist, whoever needs to be a part of my team. And that team can be different at different stages of life. But I think you touched on some really important factors. And people say, what can we do for postpartum depression? Just to clarify, we, as naturopathic practitioners, we don't treat or diagnose any particular situation, or we don't work with a particular diagnosis. We work on supporting the body. So it's a little bit different than what you might find in allopathic medicine, where they're like, okay, this is your problem. Let's go after the problem. We work on supporting the body and the mind in that process. So of whatever you're facing. So the beauty of naturopathic medicine is when you come, like if someone to come see me, we may do something because your major issue is maybe postpartum depression, but in that process, all these other things in the body start to heal because it's all connected. So very different, takes a little longer sometimes, but very well worth the journey, and you learn so much in the process. I love to educate, so I don't just have my clients leave with a handful of supplements. Every client knows why they're taking what they're taking. Nothing is just do what I say. It's a conversation and just learning about you and you learning about me. So and how I practice with you. So I think that that's really important it's a relationship. It's not just a here's what you need to do. But postpartum depression, when people say, hey, what can I do about postpartum depression? I want to take you back before you get pregnant, because if we can catch it there, we're going to be in a much better situation. And
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that we can't always catch it there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if you have the opportunity to plan your pregnancies, you have a little bit of a heads up than if you have some surprises. I
Mm-hmm.
had some surprises. I had 3 babies in 3 years, and
Oh, lovely.
my first was much sooner than I expected. Got married, was hoping to have like a year or two without getting pregnant. Got pregnant 6 weeks after we got married. So not a lot of prep time. Was pretty nutrient deficient coming up to pregnancy. So I think, when you look at the situations, like as a practitioner, when I watch someone come to me, there's some pretty consistent attributes to each person that comes to see me with a situation like postpartum depression. If I look at their history, most often they have been really nutrient depleted before they've come to see me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so maybe they have some gut dysbiosis, some problems with their gut
Mm-hmm.
pre-pregnancy that are causing them to have poor assimilation of their nutrients. And so I think that is, if we can start to work on that ahead of time, we know that a lot of our feel-good hormones are created in the gut. Our serotonin, 85 to 95% of our serotonin is created in the gut. And so if the gut's not in great shape ahead of time and doesn't have all the nutrients it needs to send those hormones to the brain, then we are going to have some problems once we go through all that the baby needs and pulls from us during pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can, plan a little bit, which we don't always get to do, then I like to do that with my clients. I like to, go in and really repair any of the leaky gut kind of issues we might have and really flood the body with nutrients ahead of time. We end
Mm-hmm.
up with much better outcomes post-pregnancy when we get the opportunity to do that. When we deal with stress ahead of time, we kind of have good support for stress hormones. And we get to walk that out even during pregnancy. Somebody think, oh, you can't take supplements other than a prenatal during pregnancy. That's just not true. You do need to be careful. Don't go out there and read on the internet and just grab the first thing that pops up for your particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely different during pregnancy, but it's not like you have to like starve yourself of targeted nutrients during pregnancy and then suddenly you can take different nutrients are nutrients. And
Yeah.
so I would say fundamentally in my practice I do use herbs, but most of what I use is nutrient based, and then with herbs kind of like as our where we need to fill in gaps. And there are some great ones that we can use during pregnancy. It's just a matter of, working with your practitioner, your provider, and making sure we're all on the same page and we all understand what we're doing. And it's not like you've got everybody working, going different directions. I think that that's a really important component of walking things out.
Yeah.
So, but, let's just be real. Most of us don't get to plan that great for pregnancies. I don't know too many people that were like, I wanted this pregnancy to happen here, and I just like did it all
Yeah.
perfectly. And, so let's just be real in that sometimes we're going to end up in hard situations where you went through a hard pregnancy. I had terrible hyperemesis gravidarum. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the diagnosis. All through my first pregnancy, was hospitalized several times for dehydration and nutrient depletion,
Yeah.
and had one baby, and then struggled post. A little bit with her. Then I got pregnant again, and yes, I know how that happens. But I got pregnant again when she was 10 months old. And so after my second baby, that's when I really struggled with postpartum depression. And it was bizarre. And you feel like you're losing your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to like sit with you in a minute for that, because it's really hard. and you feel like you're not a good mom. All of this
Mhm.
shame and junk can come flooding in.
Mhm.
And you can feel really desperate and almost like, I can't tell anybody this because people are going to think I'm a terrible mom.
Mhm.
And, if you tell someone that you're struggling like that and they brush it off, they're just not the kind of person you tell stuff to. Find somebody else to tell the things to,
Mhm.
because that will listen and walk with you in that. So, from an emotional perspective, build your team of friends and loved ones that will walk with you in wherever you're at. Even if you felt like you were going to yell at your child because you felt so torn up and
Mhm.
you're like, what's wrong with me? I want to yell at my crying baby. Like, that's what people experience. It's real life. And you just want to scream or go in a hole or run away. I
Mhm.
remember, like, both babies upstairs down for naps, both crying, downstairs, laying on my living room floor, sobbing my eyes out,
Yeah.
thinking all I want to do is get in the car and leave.
Mhm.
And that is real depression, postpartum depression.
Mhm.
It could be extreme like that, and it can just be like those nagging thoughts that happen every day. And so neither one, if both of them are symptoms of a problem.
Mhm.
Both of them are symptoms of, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, it's almost always a combination of both.
Mhm.
But um, neither should be ignored. The nagging or you don't need to power through it. In fact, that
Yeah.
is the very worst thing you can do for postpartum depression, is to just
Mhm.
power through it. Very worst thing, because it won't work. And then you'll feel worse about it.
Yeah.
So um, you need to take time when you have if this is going on for more than a week or so. Granted, post delivery, you're going to have the ups and downs. You might just have to
Mhm.
ride the wave. But there are some really key things you can do to give your body what it needs to be able to walk through it. I'm not saying every day is going to be perfect. There are just hard things about a newborn.
Mhm.
But there are some really key things that we can do to support our bodies. And if you have a plan and
Mhm.
you have somebody walking with you, that's ideal. Not everybody can afford that or walk that out with someone. So I would like to give some, like, key kind of fundamentals that are really important from a nutrient perspective,
Mhm.
because we have this whole disruption of the hormones after delivery. So everything's been firing one way, and then that baby comes out, and the body's like, whoa, what just happened?
Mhm.
And so, and you're exhausted, and you don't feel like cooking, and people feed you crud. They drop, junk meals off at your house if you're lucky. Maybe they're not dropping anything off your house. And so all of the combination you can have a perfect storm situation where, like, you're just exhausted in every possible way. So I always have the practice of, how do we make this as simple as possible for you? And I do use some specific supplement lines that I've just found over the years work really well for that situation.
Mhm.
But we want to make sure key nutrients are in place. We need good absorbable forms of methylated B vitamins.
Mhm.
There are lots of studies that show that people that are prone to postpartum depression have MTHFR mutations, which is a whole nother subject for a whole
Mhm.
nother day. But basically, in this instance, it refers to the assimilation of your B vitamins, and how your body can break them down. So I, as a practice, use methylated forms of B vitamins
Mhm.
with all my clients, whether you have that mutation or not.
Mhm.
Um, but there is a huge link between, in practice, in clinical practice. There's some studies, even from a medical perspective, that verify that relationship with how you've been absorbing those B vitamins all your life. And
Mhm.
then you get into a situation where your body really needs a lot of them and
Mhm.
you're not able to get them. So your prenatal should have a methylated form of B vitamins. If it just has folic acid, the chances of you absorbing that are rather slim. I forget the percentage, but I think it's something like you only absorb about 20% of that. But a
Mhm.
methylated form, so you should see methylcobalamin, you should see, that those, you should see that on your back of your prenatal. Um,
Mhm.
there's a great one from Nutritional Frontiers called Women's Complete, great for prenatal, postnatal, just a
Mhm.
great all around supplement. There, I always tell people during pregnancy, I get it. I couldn't swallow pills either. I wanted to like gag all the time. So if I have to throw in a gummy during that time, one that I choose most frequently for clients is actually Smarty Pants's
Mhm.
prenatal, organic prenatal.
Mhm.
It tastes yummy. It's not like the best vitamin ever, but I would rather get something than
Something.
nothing.
Yeah.
And they do use methylated forms of vitamins. So if that's what you need to do during those early on nausea days of
Mhm.
pregnancy, then by all
Sure.
means, if that's how you can take it post pregnancy because you're crazy busy and it just seems overwhelming, then
Yeah.
please take that one, because it's better than nothing. So, um, you know, making it doable is really important. You can
Yeah.
have all the bottles on your shelf and
Mhm.
all the nutrients in your fridge, but if you can't bring yourself to do it, then it does you no good.
Yeah.
So, coming up with a plan, um, to make it doable, and I'm telling you, like, it's worth it to reach out to someone that will give
Mhm.
you a plan that you can follow. And if it's overwhelming, you just say, that's overwhelming, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Don't feel like it's on a piece of paper and oh my
Mhm.
goodness, I'm gonna do this or else I fail. Like any good practitioner is gonna be like, okay, what can we do? Like,
Mhm.
where do we start? Let me walk with you. They're not gonna be like, well, I'm sorry, you came to me for this advice, and if you can't do it, then you're screwed. Like, that's just
Yeah.
not a good practitioner.
Mhm.
So let us walk that with you, from that
Mhm.
perspective. But so key nutrients though, I wanted to, so the B vitamins related to that is a lot of people post delivery are anemic. And
Mhm.
so it's important to have those iron and ferritin levels checked. So iron is, your hemoglobin is how it circulates in the blood.
Mhm.
But the ferritin shows how it's getting to the organs and getting to where you really need it to function. So
Mhm.
that's just a really simplistic description of that, but that's what we need in
Sure.
these situations. So,
Mhm.
um, if you're going to a practitioner that only checks your hemoglobin, it might be a really good idea to ask for ferritin levels to be checked as well,
Mhm.
because that really shows how your body is able to mobilize
Mhm.
iron in the body.
Yeah.
And I, I see it all the time. I see optimal hemoglobin levels and in the gutter ferritin levels, and those in the gutter ferritin level peoples are the people are the most exhausted people, because it's almost worse because there's all this circulating iron in the blood that can actually be inflammatory if we
Mhm.
are not able to like drive it the right direction. So
Mhm.
ferritin is our good driver, uh,
Mhm.
that causes there not to be an end up a buildup. So ferritin and iron, getting all your B vitamins checked. And just a little caveat with that, you can show high B vitamin. Your B12 may show like high. That as a practitioner is an indicator to me that it's not driving correctly, not
Mhm.
necessarily that you are taking too many B vitamins.
Mhm.
So I'm going to look at assimilation and gut health in that situation,
Mhm.
not necessarily pull you down off of the B vitamin. I'm going to say,
Okay.
okay, do we have a good one? If we do, then we need to deal with the gut so
Mhm.
that it can basically send it where it needs to go to
Mhm.
be used for you. So, um, knowing those things as you're going in to get blood work, being informed with those things, it's not like, oh my goodness, I got to not take B vitamins. Like maybe there's
Mhm.
a reason that your
Yeah.
body's not assimilating it correctly. Omegas, good, healthy fats,
Mhm.
so important. Our brains are made of fats. So if we are struggling with any kind of depression, postpartum or otherwise, why would we not give our brains their key nutrient?
Yeah.
So good healthy fats, avocados, avocado oil, good nuts and seeds. Hey, mamas, nuts and seeds are easy when you're nursing. Like, get
Mhm.
some nuts and seeds. Grab a handful every time you nurse.
Mhm.
Um, Put them, if you have a chair that you nurse in. I mean, once you have more than one, there's no nursing chair. Um, just
Yeah. It's like
that.
nursing house.
Nursing, you're like walking around nursing.
Yeah.
I did that a lot. But put them somewhere where you're gonna just grab a handful and make that part every time you nurse. Grab a handful of nuts and seeds. Um, Chew them up. all the way. Take your time with it.
That's probably an
Because
important tip for
it's so
mom.
huge for moms. We get in this
The
rush
enzymes
mode.
and yeah.
Yeah, all those enzymes are created in your mouth.
Mhm.
And then when we're stressed, we deplete our beta and hydrochloric acid, which is what breaks down all of our proteins and helps break down fats, helps break down
Mhm.
carbohydrates. And so as your body is recovering from all the stress of labor and delivery and no sleep, it's even more important that you slow down. If that means slowing down your chewing, then we need to slow down the chewing. Mamas don't eat. New mamas don't eat well.
Mhm.
Maybe I should put that way. So slow it down. You can chew while you're nursing. Like
Mhm.
you can do it. So just these little simple things that seem like no big deal, they really do make a big difference for
Mhm.
your nutrient assimilation. So
Yeah.
we can have so basically there's three elements that I look for with postpartum depression. I look for nutrient depletion, and I look for adrenal and endocrine insufficiency.
Mhm.
So we have the hypothalamus and the pituitary, and then that sends information all downstream on what's supposed to happen with your adrenaline, your cortisol, all of your reproductive hormones. That's all actually decided up here, but
Mhm.
the pathway goes both ways. So when we have disruption or a change downstream, it can send the wrong, not the wrong, but it can send like a mixed up pathway going the other way as well.
Yeah.
And where do we fix that? In the gut. We fix it in the gut because that's the pathway. So anytime you're looking at these issues with our health, we have to follow the pathway of disruption and support that pathway
Mhm.
back upstream, downstream, and upstream. And so I like to use good digestive enzymes, good probiotics. Sometimes I'll add something like GI Complete, which heals the gut lining
Mhm.
for the pathway. But there are some great herbs we can use to support the adrenals, to support the thyroid. If I have a mama that starts to show thyroid dysfunction, my
Mhm.
immediate thought goes to the adrenals because they're so heavily connected.
Mhm.
So many times I support the adrenal, the thyroid goes right back in line. It's just that T3, trying to work hard enough to handle the
Mhm.
stress. We support that pathway, and then the thyroid's like, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
We do that sometimes with certain nutrients. I use a lot of ashwagandha in my practice. It's very, very safe. Typically, and again, I'm going to put that caveat, typically ashwagandha is very safe during pregnancy and nursing. You'll want to verify that with your practitioner.
Mhm.
But it's a really good support. We can use things like L-theanine to support the
Mhm.
stress response in the body. And there's some other things that we can do as well that are a little bit more intricate if we needed to.
Mhm.
But the foundation is nutrients. So we get those nutrients in. Sometimes we don't need to do this part here. But if we're really depleted, we may need to do both. And
Uh-huh.
so that upstream, downstream response is really important. But a good prenatal methylated form, we can, most practitioners, OBGYNs, things like that are going to be okay with using some ashwagandha. You want to have that conversation.
Mhm.
And then from a physical perspective of what, I like to focus more on what we do than what we don't want to do. But
Mhm.
sometimes we need to just have that little conversation about your caffeine intake. Um,
Yeah.
just a little conversation. I'm a fan.
Uh-huh.
I enjoy my cup of coffee a couple times. Normally I have one cup in the morning, every once in a while, a second cup, just because it's relaxing to me.
Mhm.
But caffeine is really hard on the adrenals, and
Mhm.
that's also going to affect the baby as well. So if you have a really fussy baby, some people
Mhm.
look at like all these nutrients. I'm like, well, let's look at your caffeine intake first, because that could
Sure.
actually be the
Mhm.
issue. You go all pregnancy being like, one cup of coffee a day, and then you're exhausted and you're like, maybe 3 will be okay, maybe 4 will
Yeah.
be okay.
Yeah.
So we want to look at that. But
Real quick,
yeah.
what you said about the stuff you do for the adrenals for
Hmm.
thyroid issues.
Yeah.
I see a lot of my patients are on Synthroid,
Right. Hmm.
like a ton, and they
Right.
don't seem to think, it's a mixed bag. Some people think
Right.
it helps, and other people are like, I don't know,
Right.
doesn't seem to help. But
So it'll shift your blood work. So if you're treating just the blood work, it'll show that your levels are better in your basic blood work. So normally when you go to a traditional allopathic doctor, they'll check your TSH and your free T4.
mhm,
Um, and every once in a while, if you get a really good one, they'll throw in a T3.
mhm,
But we really want to see like, the whole panel. So there's a lot that goes into that.
mhm,
Um, but levothyroxine, it um, so the way that works in the body is it will raise your T4 higher,
mhm,
but the T3 is basically, again, that distribution of the thyroid
mhm,
hormone. So sometimes we end up with a clog. Sometimes people find they even feel worse when they
mhm,
start levothyroxine. So I
mhm,
am a big proponent of, if we have to do um, a pharmaceutical for the thyroid, I will always encourage my clients to ask for a natural desiccated form that works more synergistically with the body.
mhm,
Um, I would say 80% of the time, when I support the thyroid, we end up not needing to go when I support the adrenals, we end up not
mhm,
needing to go that route. But there's no shame in
mhm.
starting if you need to do it.
Yeah.
Um, I like, Nature Throid, Armor. WP Thyroid was my absolute favorite thyroid support, just because of the
Mhm,
way the pathways it used in the body, but they
mhm,
reformulated that and I haven't really brushed up on the reformulation. But um, if you are taking thyroid support, even in the form of Synthroid or levothyroxine, the adrenal support can actually help drive that where it's more helpful for you.
yeah.
So when we support that adrenal pathway, then we can sometimes support the use of the pharmaceutical.
Mhm,
So it's not that you can only do one. You can do
right.
them together,
Yeah.
and sometimes one will help the other to
Well,
work better.
and I
So
feel like they get discouraged when they take this. They think they're gonna get relief,
yeah.
and they're like, "It didn't work. I still feel like."
Right.
Oh, that's good
And
to
I and I think sometimes, we have a lot of things that affect the mood post pregnancy. If you're like me and you're a mama who thought that nursing, you would just drop all the weight in 22 seconds and you
know.
would be fine, like your best friend,
Mhm, mhm,
um, it can be really disappointing. And that
yeah,
can, kind of really feed that depression. And you just want
mhm,
to do anything to make that at least go away. And so people start dieting really early in the
yeah,
process of nursing, and they actually create a fight or flight response physically in the
mhm,
body
yeah,
and can make it worse. And when we understand what the fat cell does, for us, not against us, it can help that thought process, because the fat cell will open up when it's in need of nutrients and when it wants to get rid of toxicity.
mhm,
So, because the fat cell holds all of it, comes in there, it's really cool. It comes in there and it'll hold the toxicity in the body so
mhm,
that the body has time to deal with it. It'll also open up when it needs nutrients in the body. So, the worst thing you can do postpartum for weight gain is to stop eating, um, and to diet hard. It's really the worst thing you can do, because the body is amazingly adaptive. So it will continue to keep that open cell so that it gets whatever nutrients it needs. And all you're going to do is frustrate yourself.
mhm,
So put good things in, if it runs, if it swims, if it flies, if it grows, eat
mhm,
it, eat the things that God made, and then trust that your body is doing what it's supposed to do.
mhm,
And stop comparing yourself, because that is that'll get you depressed faster than anything else.
mhm,
My best friend, when I was having babies, she had babies, like we literally had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we just kept having babies. She would literally gain 60 pounds in a pregnancy, and no kidding, it would all be gone in 2 months post pregnancy.
Wow.
And I would just be like, what the heck? But she ate her heart out during pregnancy.
Hmm.
She just like, I don't know, she was like a horse. I couldn't believe it. I was so nauseous during pregnancy that I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, no. And so, but amazingly, post pregnancy, she would drop it so fast. And that was super frustrating for me. But when I started to realize the beauty of the fat cell,
Hmm.
it just kind of like, it was like a eye-opening to me that when my body, if I'm putting good things in, and my body is still needing to be a certain size, it's not doing something against me, because it's God made it to take in those nutrients. Nothing's wrong with it.
Hmm.
It's doing what it needs to do to protect me and to nourish me and to nourish my babies. And so um, just settle back a little bit. Just because your friend went down to their size 6 post pregnancy
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's what your body needs to do.
Hmm.
And so, hang on to your body is created
Hmm.
perfectly for you and adapted for you, and that will take like a huge load off,
Yeah.
because you rarely meet, I would say 1 in 10 women that I see with postpartum doesn't have a weight component to that. So I'd say
Yeah.
90% the weight component is heavily weighing on them mentally and emotionally.
Hmm.
But if you recognize it as a good thing, not a
Yeah.
bad thing,
I
you
was
need to do
probably
it.
I was probably weird, not that kind of a case. I gained probably 20 pounds, if that, with both kids.
Right.
And I was like smaller after delivery. Like it
Hmm.
just dropped off. But then my kids weren't good sleepers. So I felt
Uh-huh.
like I didn't gain any weight really. I was the same size when I got done. But then that year of Chinese water torture or whatever, the
The sleep
torture, the
deprivation,
sleep
yes.
deprivation
Yeah,
caused me to then seem to be bigger than right after delivery.
right, right.
So it was very different.
And that explains, I mean, exactly what we talked about. So the cortisol response in the body came to the rescue. I know it didn't feel like it, but it came to the rescue, and it was like, oh my goodness, we need to open up these cells. We need no more nutrients to handle the depletion that's
Mhm.
happening from the constant, what the body's asking for.
Yeah.
So, we're, we're made to put on a little extra fluff for stressful times. And
Mhm.
so when you know, we can fight it. And I'm telling you, everybody I know that really fights it hard ends up with a worse situation. I'm definitely a poster child for that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And where God keeps bringing me is like, Michelle, just eat what your body needs and let it do what it's supposed to do. And
Mhm.
um, as I've let go of that, it's like I'm healing,
Mhm.
and letting go of what I think my body needs to look like for a particular season, and just being like, you know what it's doing today is awesome. And because it's keeping me alive today,
Yeah.
and what it does tomorrow might be different and still awesome. So
Mhm.
it almost gives you freedom to make better choices,
Mhm.
because you're not in this constant shame cycle. We know that doesn't feed anything good
Mhm.
in the
For
body or the
sure.
mind. So really encourage people to just take a deep breath, lots of deep breaths, and make sure that you realize you're in a season,
Mhm.
and that season is going to be what it is. I mean, you can try to force your children to sleep at night, but I'm telling you, like, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And so there's things that you can do, absolutely, but at the end of the day, like, just ride it out, and the less stressed you get into it. My first was a terrible sleeper at first. I mean,
Oh,
it
really?
was torture. And then I just, like, by the time I had my third, he was still a terrible sleeper. And I had 2 other ones, but I just was like, he's not going to be this age forever. And I just
Yeah.
kind of wrote it out. I stopped trying to like force sleep into that child.
Yeah.
And, we were all happier. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like ideal. I was a little groggy for a few years. But that season is gone for me. My kids are,
Yeah.
now out of that stage, and they still occasionally don't sleep, but that's between them and their bedrooms. They still crawl into our bed at night, and I'm like, "All right, come on in."
Yeah.
But I think that, and maybe that's not the answer for you. I did strict sleep training with my oldest, and I did not strict sleep not training with my youngest.
Hmm.
And my middle is probably the most balanced in all of that. But and that reflects in their sleep habits today. So but it doesn't, my oldest is much more stressed and anxious
Hmm.
in general. So I you know just ride it out. It's not going to be forever. And people used to tell me that, and I was like, yeah, you're not walking what I'm walking right now. And you're right, we're not.
Hmm.
I'm not in that phase right now. I
Yeah.
look at it with fond, like, I wish I could have taken that when people would say that and like actually have it sink in. um, and now I just look at it with like, you know well, we made it, and you will. You'll make it. But don't feel like you have to ignore these symptoms. Everything's a symptom
Mhm.
that you're experiencing, whether it's weight gain post pregnancy, or emotional ups and downs and mood swings,
Mhm.
lack of, some people. I got to the point where I couldn't sleep post pregnancy. Like, my kids would be asleep, and it was like,
Mhm.
that was when I was like, "Bing," so that's an indicator of the adrenals working really hard during the day.
Mhm.
um, so um, you
And
know
even like you're like, I think people think postpartum and they think the first 6 months or the first year.
Mm-mm.
Like I
Mine hit.
haven't, yeah, I haven't addressed the adrenals properly, and my son's gonna be 2 in 2 weeks,
Right,
and I'm just now,
right.
being like, okay, I need
Better
better
support.
sleep. Yeah.
Right. I think that we for me, so with my first, I didn't really have time to understand what was happening with my adrenals because I got pregnant again. With my with my second, I was a total mess. Oddly, getting pregnant again, um, I got pregnant when she was 8 months old. Again, I do not recommend this method. But with Pierce, with my youngest, I was just so aware of what I had done. Like, I was like, oh my goodness, my body is a wreck. So I did not fight like putting nutrients post pregnancy with him.
Mhm.
Um, and I did some, really good supportive stuff. And I did not deal with postpartum depression with Pierce within the first 2 years. But I will say, if you fast forward like 2.5 years, like once I stopped nursing, it kind
Mhm.
of all hit me. Um, and so we don't really call it postpartum depression, you know,
Yeah.
in our society at that point. We just think that we've lost our minds and we don't have it together, and we're a mess, and nobody can possibly know what a mess we are.
Yeah.
um, but your body, I mean, your body did something awesome in pregnancy
Mhm.
and in taking care of those babies when they're little. So give it a little love, when
Mhm.
you finally get to the point that you can. I know,
Mhm.
Kate, you're at that place. It took me like almost dying of COVID to get to the place where I was like, maybe I don't need to work a billion hours a week. Maybe I can have my own practice and work 2 days a week. Like, maybe I can slow this down a little bit for a season and give my body some time to like catch up with the chaos of
Sure.
babies in 3 years, about with Lyme's disease, my husband going
Mhm.
through some deep depression and literally being on a ventilator from COVID. Like, maybe now's the time. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's an awesome transition. I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, but you made the transition from your practice at Grove City to your private practice after your
yeah,
huge
yeah,
hospitalization with COVID. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was a big life changer. It's one of those things where you just kind of reevaluate. I was so stressed and working
Mhm.
so hard and so many hours. And I had some pre-existing situations going on in my body, and
Mhm.
it was kind of the perfect storm. I was taking care of literally everybody but myself.
Yeah.
My kids, my clients, people that walked into the store where I was working.
Yeah.
I was going COVID was, some people slowed down during COVID. COVID for me is like this big explosion in my world, like the COVID shutdown and all that. I was working like
Mhm.
crazy. People were calling constantly, texting constantly. I walked
Mhm.
so many people through support for their bodies during COVID. And by the time it hit mine, there was nothing left. I was so depleted. So, uh, God really used that to put me in a hospital bed and
Mhm.
have me like really look at my life and really see, like, is this really how I want to continue in
Yeah.
this kind of a frenzy?
Mhm.
And sometimes we have those moments. Again, I must just have to learn that way. But really taking that time to just say, like, I I think that, you think as a mom that you have to be the one for everything your child needs.
Mhm.
I carried that over to every relationship. I had to be the one that helped everybody that needed something. And
Mhm.
um, God, I mean, just going through all of that, it's like, no, like, he loves them more than I do. And there's other people that love the people
Mhm.
that I care about. And it doesn't mean that it has to be what I carry. And I can trust that, God can lead me in what I do need to walk in.
Yeah.
And it's really been transforming for
Mhm.
me to kind of see it differently. I'm less stressed than I really, maybe my whole life, even pre-kids, because I'd always been like a type A, like driven
Yeah.
control freak. And I just, at this point, just feel really at rest with, okay, what's on today's agenda, and just walking it out and trusting that even if that bothers someone or offends someone, that,
Mhm.
they can have they have the opportunity to walk that out
Yeah.
too. And I can just rest in the fact that it's not about me, but I
Mhm.
can't be any help to anyone. I mean, it got
Right.
to the point where, like, I was spinning my wheels. And then, like, relatively useless. So I we have one life, and God has purpose for that life.
Mhm.
But it may not be as complicated and crazy as we think it is. And so that's really where I've come around to. And
Mhm.
now I put good nutrients in, and my weight is not what I would have loved for it to be, but I am like happy with the fact that my body did what it needed to do and had the
Yeah.
stores it needed to get me through the hard stuff. And I trust that when it's supposed to do something different, that it will. But right now, today, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, there's joy and rest and peace when you let go.
Mhm.
And we sometimes fight that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I have.
Awesome.
Yep, yep.
So I just wanted to put out there that
Yeah,
you treat all different
yeah,
things, not
right.
just the postpartum mom, but you
No,
you do the whole gamut. So,
right.
um, and what are your days in your office?
Yeah. So right now, just through the summer, I'm only working Mondays and Thursdays, so I
Mhm.
can spend time with my kiddos the other days.
Yeah.
In the fall, we'll be adding some more days. I do have, typically an opening or two a week. So you can reach out on harborofhopehealingservices.com
Mhm.
and make an appointment there, or give us a call at
Yeah.
724-372-2127.
Yeah, I will get all your stuff and link
Oh,
it in
cool.
the show
Yeah,
notes, so that should be good.
you're awesome. Yeah, you
Good.
can reach out, and if love to walk with you. But
Yeah.
even just incorporating these key things can just be
Mhm.
huge for you.
Yeah.
And I know, Kate,
Perfect.
you have some access to some of these nutrients as well, so I can link those for you as well. I
Awesome.
can give you those links.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.